What is going on? You are listening to Tags Podcast, aka Talk About Gay Sex Podcast, celebrating 6 years of podcasting. This is episode 518. I am your host, Steve V. Alongside, really happy just the two of us today, Lincoln.
I know, a lot of chat time. I love it.
Yes, exactly. How are you doing, by the way?
Doing really well. Just a little overworked, but that's okay. We've had some more issues with Pretzel, but she's being very normal and very 100% right now. So hopefully it's going to last. It's just the way it goes, one day at a time. You know what I mean?
I definitely know, yes. And I am in Puerto Vallarta still, which is exciting. And actually with my mother, my sister and my mother. So we're having mom time, showing her my sister's condo. And they're upstairs finishing up the sunset cocktail moment that I just left. And
oh, nice.
Yeah, really nice. So enjoying
That's nice that you have time with both of them. Stuff like that is very cherished.
Absolutely. So we're really enjoying that. So, okay, well, we have got to get into some hot topics before we get into some other really juicy topics that I'm excited to talk to Lincoln about. First off, we do have to talk about the FBI, which just busted a multi-million-dollar counterfeit HIV drug scheme. This all happened in Miami. The FBI essentially nabbed a Miami man who was selling, get this, 16.7 million of misbranded and adulterated HIV meds. So we're talking PrEP as well. And when a drug is adulterated, it typically means when a substance has been substituted in whole or in part for the drug, obviously rendering the medication weak, useless, dangerous, all those things. And for people living with HIV or antiretroviral, if it's not working at full capacity, that's obviously dangerous. So the guy's name was Armando Herrero. He did plead guilty in September to a scheme that saw him setting up fraudulent companies in California, Colorado, Florida, Maryland, and Texas, Washington State. And this occurred from 2019 to 2021. And the thing is, he would sell to wholesale pharmaceutical suppliers, which then, of course, sold the drugs to pharmacies, which dispensed these prescription drugs. And people like Gilead, companies like Gilead, which we all know, they're suing, of course, but this all is a little scary because many of us take PrEP and many people that are, they keep people alive. And so when I heard about this is great. Obviously, this guy is being sentenced. He pleaded guilty, and that's all good. He's off the streets. But I've heard of other stories like this, Lincoln, recently, of like your meds, like that, things you just take for granted that you think are going to be like, why would you even think it came from your pharmacy? It should be doing its job. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, do we all have to? I mean, most of us hopefully are seeing our doctors and keeping up with it, but does it worry you? And what are your thoughts when you hear something like this?
Yeah, well, let me ask though, the pharmacies that they were selling to, were they like the mom and pop pharmacies that we try and support, or were they Walgreens, or does it not say?
Let me just quote here. The issue of illegitimate medications is a big one for pharmaceutical companies. Gilead Science, Biktarvy, and Truvada's, their medicines, reported in 2022 that enormous amount of counterfeit meds had been sold under their name, and that it was in the process of suing illegal distributors. So when they're coming out and saying this, it's actually hitting. And then I listed all those states in the US that are, it's just, ugh.
Yeah, it's just so sad. I don't understand the motivation, except I guess to make quick money. I don't, the world we live in, I'm surprised yet not surprised every day. It's just, I try not to focus on it, but I'm glad that we get the word out there so that at least people will have the knowledge of it.
Right. We talk so much on the show of getting tested more often than not, particularly, in those, I'm a product of my own words here, coming off of the Vakaya week here, where they had a red light district, which I had a lot of fun, but you better believe I'm going to be in between. I don't need to, according to the rules of, I'm in the middle of my 3-month prep testing. So I don't need to, but because I know I'm more sexually active, I'm going to
It's a good idea
definitely.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, I feel like going to the local pharmacia and getting one of the, but I'm not. I will wait to go home to see my doctor and do it the correct way, or go to, the free clinic too. So
And I
as
would
well.
also say if you live in any of those states that might be affected by this, definitely talk to your doctor.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will list this on tagspodcast.com. So it's just something to be aware of and to check, not to freak everybody out, but staying on HIV, there's a really good article for Plus, HIV Plus magazine, reminiscing a little bit about POZ nights at gay bars, saying that they were wonderful, but are now outdated. And for 10 years, patrons seeking a carefree, stigma free zone would go to where we live in Manhattan. Remember, I think it's still there, Ritz Bar and Lounge. Did you ever go there,
Oh yeah,
Lincoln?
that's on Restaurant Row.
Exactly. Right. It's so funny. Yeah. Well, from 2006 to 2017, they actually did a night called POZ Night. And it was essentially a place because in that period, stigma was is maybe not at the all time high. Obviously, it's not the 90s or the early 2000s, but still, stigma was running pretty high. And Tommy Greco was the person that was running the owner, Tommy Greco, recalled recently at the National Gay Men's HIV/AIDS Awareness Day, which was just in September, quote, "It wasn't a lot, but it was everything for some," Greco said in a statement. He highlighted now, especially when POZ Night began, HIV stigma among gay and bi men was intense. Quote, "A lot of men were open about being gay, but in the closet regarding their status." So to have this night where they could get together, socialize, it was pretty huge, he says. And they even had a secret entrance, which made it accessible to more people. And he
Hmm.
was recalling a little bit more about the pause night, sharing advice. They would share things like advice about their doctors, meds, comorbidities, with many attendees leaving behind brochures so others could follow up. The staff at Pause Night offered many non alcoholic drinks to cater to those in the sober community. And he's reminiscing, but he also says that today, this isn't with things like U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable. There's obviously a less of a need for this kind of segregated night at bars, but I don't know. It's kind of cool that they did this. And it's even cool. It's not that long ago, Lincoln, that this was going on.
No.
And I mean, I know we talked a lot before about what it was like to get tested in the 90s and all that, the fear that we all felt. But for those living with HIV over the years, even in the early 2000s, you would think there wouldn't be that much stigma, but there was. I
I
mean,
think there's still stigma today. It depends on where your surroundings are. Excuse me, and who your circle is. It's kind of related. I'll just tell a small story.
please.
We something happened with Pretzel and her health, and I had to run and get medication. Did you know there's a 24-hour pharmacy in New York up at Columbus Circle? It's a
No.
CVS 24-hour pharmacy. So if you ever need medication in the middle of the night, that's where you go. And we had been at the vet all day, and I was so like down and in my head. And I go up there, and there's all these people there getting their COVID shots or something from all walks of life. And when I walked in, I noticed the head pharmacist guy looked like my cousin Sergio. Like he had dark hair, handsome, and I just didn't even give it a second thought. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Right.
And I'm trying to get this medication, and I'm in line, and I get to the front, and of course I'm in the wrong line. And they're like, you have to go to the pharmacist and ask. And the moment I went back, his pharmacy jacket was off. He was wearing a pink polo, and he was a gay. And I was so excited that there
I'm
was
excited
another
hearing this.
gay in the moment, that I was like, finally, someone's. Because if it was some non-gay, I still would have. I want to give it the benefit of the doubt, but I'm trying to get medication under Salty Pretzel, which is the name of my dog, and I don't know
Yeah.
what birthday they gave, hers or mine, and I was such relieved. So I do understand the power of someone who is about your age, or who is your sexuality, or who is your nationality, or who is that you just kind of go, do you, can you, and he had all the empathy in the world for me. It was like hysterical, and we were laughing about it, and he lifted my spirit. So I see that when there's a certain, and the other thing I was going to compare it to is like when there's a Madonna night at a bar. Like when there's a Madonna night, everyone's there for Madonna. You talk about the T-shirt someone's wearing or the song they're playing, and it brings people together. So
Listen,
good thing.
more than ever, in particular this time, the word communing is so important to find. We're not trying to find people that just think like us, but because we're so divided right now. But I think when you can just find that community, that sense, it's just speaks to your heart, your soul, and it's a safe space, and everything's hopefully is probably going to be okay just
Yeah.
by that pink shirt that you saw
Yeah.
was comforting, and you needed that at that time, and the universe sent it to you at a pharmacy that was 24 hours, and that's beautiful. So
Yeah.
yes, and yeah.
I just think, I hope that we all kind of look for those signs in any situation that we're in, and we all try and be that sign for other people. To add a little to the story, when we went and picked up the medication, there was a wait, and
Yeah.
Peter and I were talking about turmeric,
Yeah.
the right turmeric, and we're like, oh,
Anti-inflammatory.
did you
Yeah.
get it? I didn't. And there was this man, God knows where from, he saw it on a shelf, and he went, excuse me, is this what you're looking for? And it was just some random, we went back at like 1 a.m, and he had overheard our conversation, and he was so, I also have to say, it was one of those days where like everyone in New York was nice. Like no matter
Wow.
how hard it was outside,
That
everyone was nice.
doesn't happen a lot, but yes,
It's there if
absolutely.
you look for it. It's there. It's not if you expect it, but if you're open to it, it happens. It happens
Yes.
everywhere, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I think you're going to
Yeah.
appreciate switching gears 100% here. I think you're going to appreciate this one. I really liked it. You're going to like it for many reasons. Lady Gaga's former classmate who was on a recent podcast complaining that Lady Gaga was extra and she always sang Wicked. So I know you're going
I heard this
to
story. I love this
yes.
story.
No. So Lady Gaga. So recently, this person, Eric. Who is the person here? Let me just find it here, and I'll edit this part out. Well, Lady Gaga's former NYU classmate at Tisch School of the Arts found Lady Gaga, or Stephanie. Do you know how to say her last name? Germanota?
Germanotti? German.
Germanota?
I'm not sure. I'm not
Is it
sure.
a hard G in Italian or a soft G? Germanota or
I,
Germanota?
Chair. I think it's. I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. So Lady Gaga's real name, if you didn't know, Stephanie with an I. Germanota. Italians, please help me out and write in and
Is
let me
that? That's
know.
not. I don't know how to say. I'm so bad with words like that. But it's like
I know.
Geronelli or
You're
Geronelli.
Italian, so I figured I'd
I
ask
am
you.
Italian. One would think, but I'm also massively dyslexic, and names are
No.
not my strong suit. Trust me. But we know who she is.
Yes. And I didn't know this. When she was at Tisch, some of her classmates actually started a Facebook group that essentially said Stephanie Germanota
Geronelli? No, Geronelli. Anyway.
Germanota will never be famous. This actually happened. They started this because a lot of them were annoyed by her. Apparently, she used to go into the lunchroom where they all used to commune, and the woman that was complaining about her essentially said, "All I wanted to do was eat my sandwich," and she would sing "Wicked" every day, the top of her lungs, and like a star does, right? In my mind, but it annoyed many of them. And then this Facebook group came about too, and she said that while Gaga was eccentric, she never considered her to have a voice that stood above and beyond her peers. Quote, she was one of the good ones, but I wouldn't ever be like she was so above that. She said she's so extra, she added about college age Gaga. She would wear these really tight leotards and she had really big boobs back then. And her boobs were just like coming out and she was so ridiculous. I just think, why would you say all this? Like, because now she's Lady Gaga. And, well, she does give her props and say when she did sing her own songs, it was amazing. I mean, it brings up a lot. I want to hear about what people perceived you as in high school. I'll tell my little story too. But doesn't it reminisce a little bit of Madonna too? Like the person that really is obscure is the one that ends up being like Gaga, Mariah, Madonna.
Yeah, I mean, these are icons that have created a career out of their personality, and
Yeah.
there are plenty of eccentric.
And their
I
talent.
mean, yeah, and their talent, but it's also the luck of the moment. All of it is luck. There are plenty of talented people that
Look
don't
at
make it.
American Idol, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's now a great venue. That in these days, American Idol wasn't even a thing yet. At least not
Right.
when I was studying performing and all
Oh
that.
yeah. Right.
There was no smartphones, there was no internet. You couldn't produce yourself. It sounds like a lot of jealousy was coming out of that person, and
Yeah.
there is a there. Listen, people that are extra around me when I'm not in the mood for extra, I could be annoyed too. Like sometimes you just don't want all the extra. I know
But it's
if I enter a
college.
room, people don't want me there because I'm so extra. So I get it. You know what I mean? I understand what
Is she a
I
Leo by
understand what people are
what's her
saying.
sign? Do you know? Because like Madonna's a Leo, you're a
Madonna's a
Leo.
Leo. I'm not sure
Leos
about
are
Gaga.
typically very out there and talented and
Right.
big. And I love Leos.
Yeah.
But
But Madonna was a cheerleader in high school. She was a popular girl also. So, and I also think the stories um change over time.
yeah,
And
right.
I thought this story was kind of interesting because it came out right at the 20-year of Wicked. So Wicked
Right.
just hit 20, and there's a Lady Gaga story and all the other stories about Wicked. So,
Living
you
for
know,
this, I know.
yeah, it's
So
good.
if people don't know, Lincoln's a huge Wicked
I'm a
fan.
huge Wicked fan.
How many times?
49
Oh my
right now.
gosh.
I think I'm
And
saving 50 for the movie. But part of the reason I've seen Wicked so much is and it's the same with Madonna or so many other things in my life. I'm a very outward person. And when I like something, I say, if you ever want to go see Wicked, I'd love to see it again. So
yeah,
that right there, people come to New York, they want to see Wicked. I'm not going to drop them off at the theater and meet them when it's over. Of course, I'm
yeah.
going to go with them. You know what I mean? But I did see it 13 times in London. So I guess it is
I
more
love
of an
it. I
obsession than
love
not. It's good.
So for me, when I was in high school, let's bring it to us now, what people perceived of us. When I was in high school, I was much more quiet. I was a gymnast, but I was surprised that the yearbook labeled me most talented.
Oh,
And
wow.
I took that with me and I've done different things throughout my career. And I feel like I'm very creative and creating things. And so I kind of like that. And so I'm hoping that most people, I don't really care what people think from high school anymore, but that's kind of what the perception was me. I was quieter, but I always was in the talent shows or homecoming. We did reenactments of different films and danced, and I did gymnastics, and we choreographed, and they were somewhat larger than life productions, and I lived for that. What would people think of you back then, or of Stephen? Yeah, back
This
then.
this is a hard one because I always felt like I could tell you my highlights of doing plays, and one of the plays I did got toured around the other high schools because it was so good. I was in marching band and I was the second drum leader for my first year, and then I got out of band. And I could say in my mind all these great things that I did.
Right.
However, I was extremely picked on in elementary school and intermediate school and high school. So much so, because you say, what are other people's perceptions?
Right.
When I went to my 20-year high school reunion, was it 20 or it can't have been
Which was
30?
not, I remember you told this.
80s.
Yeah.
I tell this, and the football player came up to me and he said, "Hey, um, even if I told it before, I'm going to tell it again."
No,
He
no, I
said,
just
"Hey,
remember something, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah." He said, "Hey, when we were in high school, I remember people were really mean to you. Was I one of those people?" And I
Would you
said, "Mike, no, you were. I always felt like you stuck up for me, if anything else." And he said, "That makes me really happy to hear because I have a son in high school right now that's being really picked on. And I think of you when we
oh,
deal with this issue because of what you dealt with in high school." So
oh,
I think I was
that's
very, very
beautiful.
happy.
Can we just,
I
like,
had,
settle on that moment? That's
yeah,
beautiful.
it was such a like beautiful later in life full circle moment
Yeah.
that my first big high school reunion, someone else reminded me of this the last time I talked to some high school friends. Our first high school reunion, they remembered me walking up to this girl because I had lost all the weight. And when they said, send in pictures of yourself now, we're going to use them at the reunion, I sent my modeling comp card from New York. They put
Hey.
me on the cover of the program of the reunion. And I was voted most
Wow.
changed, even though nothing had changed except for my physical appearance.
Right.
And I walked up to what someone told me. They said, "I will never forget at that reunion. You walked up to and you said, you were so mean to me in high school. I hope that karma came back to you in folds because you made my life hell. And thank you for making it hell because it made me the man I am today." And I don't even remember telling this girl that.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
it's
impactful. It's
yeah.
bittersweet, I see.
I
Yes.
also think that we're of the generation that my high school felt like the Breakfast Club, 16
Yeah.
Candles. It felt we were living those movies in that day and age. I was in suburbia. There was all the ACDC stoners. There were the drama geeks. There were, you know what I mean? Like there
Oh
were the
my
band
god.
geeks and the cheerleaders. And it was such a different time. It was such a different time.
It's so funny because today I have a lot of friends that love the coming of age stories, the high school musical type of storylines that seem to be always prevalent. And I don't always like to watch. They're not. High school wasn't bad for me. I did get teased more in junior high, and I got teased a little bit more in grade school for sure. But by the time I got to high school, and I was definitely more, how would you say, questioning my sexuality and I had a girlfriend though, but I did not get teased though. I think people respected my gymnastic ability, and I just think I slid through that point of it. But I just think nowadays I left it all behind, and maybe I'll start watching some of these. But do you like watching any of these coming of age high school storylines that seem to be either on Broadway or there's a new film at least once a year, there's or a TV show on any of the streaming platforms about the high school experience? Do you like watching those,
I don't
or
I don't like I don't I'm not into them. Did you see Heartstoppers? Was
everybody
like the
keeps
gay
telling me I
one?
need to, but again,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's very again, it's not over the top. It's very innocent
yeah.
and cute. I saw Leah Michelle at Carnegie Hall a couple Mondays ago, and she was off the chain. And um, Darren
I love Darren.
Chris, and the other one who's now in Merrily We Roll Along, Jonathan Groff,
Oh, love
both
Jonathan
came
too.
up and sang with her, and they
Oh,
talked a lot about the early days of Glee and
okay.
how Glee started. So Peter and I just started watching Glee from the beginning, and I
Okay.
agree with you, Steve. Like halfway through an episode, I'm like, oh my god, this is so painful. I don't care about these issues. They're school issues, but then they do a great song, and I'm like, the Madonna episode's going to come on, this episode. So, and I haven't seen it since the first time on TV. I think I watched Glee before you even streamed it. You know what I mean?
Euphoria was dark, obviously, and I watched the first two seasons, but I
I
did
didn't
get
see that.
through
I
it.
wanted
Very,
to, but
very dark. But and I would consider Heartstoppers because everybody and my grandmother, if she was still alive, is telling me to watch it. And I think I will actually start watching it from the beginning. It's probably got that British sensibility, and I'm excited about that. So
It's
I
cute.
will give it. I just think I've been too hard and fast about, I don't want to watch high school stuff. Is that
Yeah, I'm
wrong?
not that. I'm trying to. I watched Abbott Elementary because it won so many awards, and I liked it, but it's not my biggest thing. You know what I mean? I got a
Yeah.
lot more out of the morning show or out of Bear or out of
Yeah.
Hijack
Oh,
than I
yeah.
did out of that. It's just not my. Have you
Okay.
watched the
Before we,
Bear, by the way?
yes, I love the Bear, but
Oh my
not the
god, it's
current
so good.
season. Not the current
I've
season.
watched
So.
both seasons twice.
Oh, I got okay. I got
It's
to
so
watch
good.
it.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, moving on to something that I wanted to talk about recently about it's come up about being a daddy and people recently I've been called a daddy and I actually didn't in the past when people called me daddy I was like, "Oh wait, does that make me old?" Well, Andy Cohen was recently on a podcast and he was talking about he's a daddy from the morning he from the moment he wakes up in the morning, because he's literally a daddy of two, and also in the bedroom as well. And he totally accepts all of this daddyhood. I recently was called a daddy because I was with somebody that was 38. Okay, I'm 52 to give a little bit of context. And this person told me that, oh, I have been looking for this kind of Latino daddy kind of moment. And believe it or not, I've accepted it in the bedroom and kind of took over. And this is somebody that I used to always be turned into the bottom. Forever, I was the notorious bottom, and I enjoyed it being a bottom. Now, I have said on this show several times, I'm way more versatile now. Well, to take it up a notch, I am now considered in some circles, given the age, that we're talking about a daddy, and I actually like it. I like it sexually. I like what it entails. Now obviously I don't want to be a sugar daddy because I don't have that much money to spend on people right now. I'm just taking care of myself, but I enjoy it. Do you consider yourself a daddy? What does that mean to you? Do you like being called daddy? Does any of this resonate with you?
Well, one, I have looked like an adult since I was 13. Like I've been 6'1". You know what I mean? I haven't
Yeah,
fit in a
right,
bathtub since I was 8 years old. Like I've just always been a big man. So like when I would go to Lake Tahoe with my grandparents, I would stand with them on the gamblers floor, and I was like 14 years old, and you have to be an adult to be there. But
right.
I just stood next to them. I never touched anything, and no one noticed. So I've always looked like an adult. People have called me daddy from time to time. I've
Wait, can I
never.
stop you really quickly? Because that's so
Sure.
true with tall people. Tall people have a commanding presence. I'm just going to say
And
it the
I'm
realness
big.
that it really
Yeah.
big. You're built, you're tall, and straight men have even said this in the past that when a tall man walks in the room that's taller than everybody else, everyone's eyes shift, and it's an immediate. Do you get respect? Kind of
Yeah,
immediate respect,
yeah. And I also am very sensitive to if there's someone taller than me because it so rarely happens. I have a new friend who's considerably taller than me, and whenever we hang out, it hurts my back because I'm actually standing up straight for the first time in a decade. But because I never look up at people, and I'm like, I
right?
gotta go home. You hurt my neck. He's such a good guy too. Anyway, um, it depends on the energy behind the daddy being talked to. Like I've had people call me daddy and it's really whiny and needy and gross and
Mm,
that's not a turn on.
right.
I've, I and for me being older is something very important to me. There are people right now who are 65 and traveling the world on tour and look amazing. I think we should revere our age. I think we should put on
Yes.
glasses if we need to see a phone and not put ourselves down for putting on glasses. I've lived this life. I made it through the AIDS virus. I made it through my mother passing. I made it through Trump and a pandemic and all these things that could have just beat me down and made me a bitter, angry, ridiculous person who's old and crotchety. And by the way, I'm also the get off my lawn human being, but I was a get off my lawn human being when I was 20. Like, being an adult and being responsible should be revered. Being older should be revered. So when it comes to leather or bondage or fetish, I like the daddy title, or that if it's a good
Kind
energy
of
and it feels
natural
like it's,
for you,
yeah, and
right?
it, yeah, absolutely. I also find people who are older than me and have more experience than me very exciting, because the experience or the nurturing of sexual behavior or fetish or any of that, I don't know how many people are learning things. It seems like
Right.
things are just kind of in the moment now and not really authentic. So if there's a good 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old who keeps shape it and has all this experience, show me, tell me stories, tell me everything you can about what you've been through, because you're still here. So I like it. I see it as nothing but a compliment.
And I'm with you too. You said something earlier. It depends on the context where it's coming from, who's saying it. And I think what's resonated with me recently is that the few people that have called me daddy, and it's been almost pillow talk, and if you will, where we've had these
Sure.
conversations and we were maybe planning the next sex move that we were going to do. And it was a sub dom role, but we flipped it later where I was sub, and I just think I'm learning more as I get older to be able to flip the script in the bedroom where I can be the sub at one point and it could be somebody younger than me, but I could also then turn it around and be the dom, okay, air quote daddy as well. And a lot of it is verbal in the bedroom. A lot of it is just taking control of the situation. Sometimes it's verbal cues, like somebody grabbing my hand and putting it on their head, and I get the point, and then it's like, okay, yeah, let me push you down, and same vice versa. And sex is becoming more interesting in my early 50s because I think I'm more open to exploring these things, and I'm meeting guys that I think a lot of these younger guys than me are willing to go there, and it's fun, and it's not that whiny thing that you spoke of earlier. It's actually a conversation, and it's mature conversations about sexuality and how you want to explore this. And it's exciting for me to think that sex could be, I mean, I'm not old, but I don't feel old, but at 52 that it could, when I was in my 20s, I was totally made to be a sub. I know I did this to myself, but it's so much more exciting now, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
It
Yeah.
does make sense. It's been exciting my whole life, and I never took things too seriously. Like, if you call me something in my 30s in a group of people that doesn't work for me, I'll just walk away. It doesn't
Well,
matter.
and
Like,
then
it's,
there's,
you
you
know
can
what
do
I mean?
that. Yeah.
Like,
Right.
and if you are that whiny person and it's not a match, we move on. If it is a
Right.
match, we do more. You know what I mean?
And role play in general can just be for the bedroom. It can obviously, there's BDSM. It can permeate into real life. We've had Master Joshua on the show where he actually walks around with a quote unquote slave at times, and they are in the parameters of a working relationship in real time. Obviously, for many of us, it's bedroom time, and there's that. Anything you can share with you and Peter on the daddy or relationship roles
We
that you guys play?
we have ebbed and flowed throughout our relationship. I mean, our roles are pretty defined, but
Yeah,
we ebb and flow,
sure.
and have fun no matter where we are. Lately, life seems to be taken over by an elderly dog
Yeah,
and things thrown our way, which, when you're dealing with stuff like that, the last thing you want to do is be worried about called daddy, like right now. But
right.
we ebb and flow. So I think that's the key.
I love that. Okay. Well, it's time to give our take. We often give advice on this show, sex and relationship advice. And by the way, you guys listening can always write into us. You can DM us for sex and relationship advice. We love to give it here. Go to tagspodcast.com. We'll give our Instagram handles in a minute after this, and you can always DM us as for sex and relationship advice. Okay, well, there is one coming from Reddit that caught my attention that was interesting, and it's entitled Nightstand Peeking. Last week this person posted about going on a date with a guy. The But to recap, the guy was awesome, the date was enjoyable, the sex was not great. Okay, that's a problem. And this person peeked in the nightstand drawer and found a large collection of dildos. Well, many people, because this person posted before, let them know that looking in a nightstand is pretty much the worst possible thing you could do, that this person is terrible for doing it and deserves to die, according to some of the people. So he had date number 2. He invited over the guy to his place and attempted to cook, which was coasting towards being a failed activity until he swooped in and saved the food. This person wrote, I admitted that I looked in his nightstand drawer, he told the guy, and actually told him that he put up a Reddit post. There was a pause. He wanted to know why in the world I did that. Things were discussed. Then he admitted he always takes a peek in a nightstand drawer, and we learned that we are both assholes and no boundaries. His words. And the sex was 10 times better this time. Still not mind blowing, but it's getting there. Well, you can imagine all the comments. I won't bore you with all of them, but they're kind of interesting. If you really want to, I can put it on TAGSPODCAST.com. What do you think when you go to somebody's house, Lincoln, and snooping around? I mean, if we went to Lincoln's place, it would, I mean, first of all, don't go in the Madonna room. Don't touch the
People
shrine
are
to Thomas
welcome
Finland.
everywhere. No, people are welcome everywhere in my
do, you,
apartment.
do you think there's a
Um,
rule about looking in people's there's a whole nightstand drawer thing. I mean, remember Miranda and the cleaning lady finding her
right.
vibrator, and it was a whole big thing.
Yeah, like so I would never open a nightstand drawer.
I
I've
wouldn't
looked in
either. Yeah,
people's medicine cabinet.
me too. For
I've in the
mouthwash,
bathroom. I don't think if you do open a nightstand drawer, you should die. I think that's a little
those are
extreme.
the
There,
trolls.
and yeah, and that's stupid. I do think if you steal something, that goes a different direction. You
Let
know, if
me
you're
let me ask
looking,
you this, because we've talked about this on the show, where people have taken people's underwear. That's not cool, right? I mean,
that's
I've
not really
asked.
cool. I mean, you're not building trust if you're doing stuff like that. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? But there is, like, when I go into somebody's house, I look at the way things are organized. I look at the how clean the house is. I look at, oh, this is the way they live. You know what I mean? But I was also raised in a house that felt like a museum, and that's my comfort zone. And I don't judge other people's apartments or what they do. And I look around at stuff to a degree. Pretzel,
salty
hello. She
pretzel.
just came to say hello. You're doing
Hello,
okay?
salty pretzel. We'll post this
I know.
on the promo.
Okay, get down. I do. Did it say how long they've been dating?
It was a second date,
Oh, it was a
so
second date.
But what do you think about the whole thing? Well, let me just say my little take on. First of all, I try and tell it comes out at some point that I host a sex podcast. So go ahead, look at my. When you get those emails that say, we've been looking at you. We know we've turned on your camera. We know what you've been looking at, adult content, and you need to wire us like $10,000 or we're going to release all this stuff. And it's a bogus sham. I always feel like, and I don't do this, I want to email them back and say, do it. I host a sex podcast. Do it. Like, make my day, Clint Eastwood kind of thing. I mean, you won't say anything or show anything that I haven't already talked about on this show. So,
Right.
like, you pick the wrong person to threaten in that way. And those things are bogus or from Nigeria or wherever. But the point being is, I don't really have a lot to hide. So I often tell people that I'm having sex with or in conversation, because I do meet people at bars. Often the question is, what do you do? It's like, well, I'm a producer. I host podcasts. It's about the gay sexuality. So they kind of know. Now, if you open my bedside drawer, you're going to see it's a mess, but you're going to see dildos, cock rings, pictures of me from back in the day. It's kind of a hodgepodge, a toy chest, if you will. And I say, look in there, see what you find, use it. So it wouldn't really bother me. But I do think when I go to guys' houses, I don't rummage through any of their stuff because I just think
Yeah.
it's rude, and it's
It's
like,
rude.
yeah,
Yeah, it's rude. And no one should be doing that. I don't think it's the end of the world, but
it's not the end
no
of the
one
right.
it's not
Yeah,
the end of the world, but no one should be doing that, and people's privacy is important. It is what
yeah,
it is.
it
But
is
I do
exactly.
like, if I heard you correctly, that when they talked about it and he admitted that he did it, the sex was better.
Yes,
And that is the lesson, is that when you have open communication about what you're both really feeling, what really thinking, then the communion of two people becomes more authentic. So that's
I
really the
did.
key.
And to your point, I dated this guy maybe 4 or 5 times. I talked about it on this show. This was like a year and a half ago. Really attracted to him, was really excited, met him at the Naked Beach in New Jersey, thought that this was going somewhere. We had great conversation, great dates, but the sex was never happening. And it wasn't until we didn't stop dating that more recently he saw me at a picture that I had posted on Instagram at Folsom East, and I was in full leather regalia. And he was like, "That's so hot." And he started DMing me. Mind you, this is a year later. And he said, "Oh, you look so good. I would love for you to like Dom." It kind of came out like as we started DMing back and forth that all that time the reason the sex wasn't so good was he really wanted to be he was a big guy too, way bigger than me, taller, built, and he it turned out wanted to be dominated and never communicated that to me. And not that I'm Mr. Dom, but because of what I was wearing leather wise in that Instagram post, it ignited him. And we had this whole conversation a year and a half later when we weren't even dating. And I was like, "Oh, you should have said something. We could have explored that." And, we now have this friendly conversation back and forth. But it's to your point, sex can be so much better when you actually just break down what you really want and say what you really want and break down like, oh, is he going to think this? Is he going to think that? And it's like, you know what? You're never going to enjoy yourself if you don't express yourself and say, this is what I want, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
That's something I don't think I've ever had a problem with. Even if, because sometimes, because I learned young in age that even if I wasn't sure,
Yeah.
I would try it and then go, no, that's not my thing. Or, oh,
Right.
I thought that was so exciting, and it was the chase. It wasn't when I actually caught it. You know what I mean? Like the chase
Yeah.
and the idea kept me going, kept being going, and then when I got there, I was like, he wasn't that special to me.
Yeah, right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Well, and with this guy, we're sort of keeping it at bay and we're not, it's hard to go backwards in time, I think sometimes, if
it is.
it didn't happen then, although we're friendly now and it's lovely, I just think, yeah, okay, well, we should have talked about it then, but we didn't. So
Yeah.
anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
And we got to move on too to our night here. I want to thank you so much. This
Aw.
has been so awesome as always, and we love to check in with Lincoln. Anything you want to promote right now? We'll give your handle.
Well, the Protein Bakery is full steam ahead. Holidays are coming, so if anyone orders Protein Bakery, I would love if you do. I have a killer rewards program now online. If you're a first time customer, you get a discount. I have a subscription service. You get 20% off if you subscribe and get a delivery of Protein Bakery. You decide the time, you decide what you want, you get a little break. And so that's kind of a fun thing. The My teaching is really taking off. So if you're in New York and you want to maybe come take a class, let me know. I'm at Gym U on 23rd and 7th, David Barton's new gym. And it's a beautiful facility, and I'm teaching some really fun classes there. And I will be in California for a couple weeks over Christmas and New Year's. So check out my
Nice.
Instagram for both the bakery and me personally, and say hi whenever you want. I'm around. It's
Let's
good.
list that Instagram. If you want to follow the Protein Bakery, go to at Protein Bakery on Instagram, at Protein Bakery. Of course, if you're in New York City, definitely go to 19th Street in Chelsea.
Yep.
between 6th and 7th Avenue. Check it out, and you can see hopefully Lincoln in person.
Stop by the shop. Yeah. And my personal Instagram, I took the words out of your mouth. Mad Lincoln, MAD Lincoln on Instagram. I actually got a modeling agent recently, and there's some new stuff going on in there, so it's fun. Good stuff.
Yeah, congratulations on that. Yeah,
Thanks.
So I love that. Follow me. I am _Steve V on the gram, and we have our new show, Of a Certain Age. Speaking of age, we took a week off. Actually, a whole debacle. Won't even talk about that, but. The positive is we're back to episode 4, and this episode I'm really excited. Cody and I talk to Susan Bratton, who's an intimacy expert and all about living longer, but living longer healthy and better. So Of a Certain Age, you can follow the show Of a Certain Age Pod, POD, on Instagram. And new episodes drop this week on Wednesday. We are live Wednesday with Tags Live. So go to tagspodcast.com to get that link. We would love to see you there. And Lincoln, thank you. And in the meantime, continue having hot
gay, the gayest sex.
I love it. See you again.